Hello, and welcome to another episode of New World Comics Podcast. I'm Buck Berlin, owner-operator of this fine establishment. It's been a really long week, and we're just now getting back to this. As you all can see, tell, whatever, I got nothing. I'm terrible at lying. So for those that may not have noticed, we've been gone for a little while. Be sure to resubscribe on your iTunes and your, I don't know, message boards, your Snapchats, and your Twitter. No.
Insert social media here.
Yeah, no. Yes. Everywhere where you find your various podcasts, look for us because we're there still, we swear, making this fine content that's not awkward or weird.
I think it's only those two things, actually.
Yep.
I think that's, yeah.
Yep. So joined with me this week, we have Jarrod and Justin, and we are talking Star Wars. But
yes,
before we do that, I want to hear from you guys. Why don't you all tell everyone who you are and what you all do, and then we can get into the thick of it.
I'm going to put him on the spot. Go.
all right. Well, I am Justin Grant. I live in Blanchard, Oklahoma. I volunteer quite a bit, in my mind, up here at New World Comics.
Yes, you do.
Buck appreciates me, but not near as much as I appreciate him and this awesome establishment. So he asked me to come here tonight to talk about the wars,
yes.
Which I love to talk about, much to the chagrin of many of my family members. So I am so excited just to talk to people that like to talk the wars.
The wars. Oh, Star Trek versus...
Yes, absolutely. Star Trek probably will not get mentioned anymore.
Yeah, no.
Don't have anything bad to say about it, but we are talking Star Wars.
That's true. Yeah, true.
Yes.
Cool.
Until I screw it up, and then I'm like, Star Trek stuff.
And actually,
which is really funny because
might talk some Star Trek.
I don't know much about Star Trek. Like, the wife has got me onto enough of the Star Trek just to be dangerous and mean.
Like
anytime I'm locked out of a place,
like
if I'm locked out of a place with a big window, immediately the hand goes up against the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few.
Nice.
Yeah. So, sorry, Jarrod, you're...
Oh, yes. Jarrod, Mizell, and I don't live in Blanchard. No, I live actually very near Moore, Oklahoma. And I do volunteer here as well. Man, you know what I haven't done? I haven't gotten on a ladder in this building.
Yet.
So there's someday, yeah.
It'll happen.
But, I actually worked here for a tiny bit.
Yep.
Which was, man, that was such a blessing. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah, well, thank you for helping.
But during the con, I do a little work ops back in the office, kind of help run some of the volunteer stuff, and during superhero school, usually a voice or a puppet.
Yeah.
Obviously fingers are always crossed for a robot, but that's that's by me. That's what I do.
All right. Well, then let's dive into it. This week. I'm getting ready for a Disney trip, and we're going to go to the Galaxy's Edge and all the other stuff. So,
yeah,
I've been super like up on Star Wars, and I was like, I want to talk Star Wars, and I have a feeling that everyone else kind of wants to, talk Star Wars too. Mm-hmm. So, we're far out now that we can talk the Rise of Skywalker, we can talk Mandalorian, we can talk movies, comics. TV shows, Christmas specials, whatever you all want to.
Future, past,
present, and or future. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I love all that.
So before we get into the Skywalker business, I want to talk some Mandalorian things.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. My lovely wife got me into Star Wars. Like I always kind of liked Star Wars, but she's like, no, here's Star Wars and here's all the greatness. And yes. What a fool I was for not, recognizing this earlier. So I'm always catching myself finding more things like, well, wait, I don't know about that thing. How do I not know about this thing? Oh, yeah, I don't know Star Wars as well as I know all the comic book stuff. So The Mandalorian seemed to take pretty much everything that I like what Marvel does with their comic movies is taking all this stuff and like picking the right things to put in and make it feel like it's that world,
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree.
and like everything from like knocking on the door, and then the thing from Return of the Jedi.
The security droid pops out. Absolutely,
The ball and stick. The ball and stick,
and it's just such a little detail that makes it. Oh, okay. Now we're dealing in Star Wars.
It likes to say "ichuta."
Yeah. So I want to know what are some of the Easter egg things that were dropped, or things like that were dropped in it that made that series so much better for you all.
If I can start,
Absolutely.
I want to say for me the eWeb repeater. The moment they started setting it up, I was like, they're alluding to an eWeb. This could be an eWeb. Please, someone say eWeb. Please show it directly in frame. And we're talking spoilers, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So
everything.
All spoilers.
Moff Gideon and the stormtroopers are mounting outside that place where we have the Mandalorian and Cara Sylvia.
Yeah, they're trapped in the bar.
Greef Karga, yeah. And so they have just used really heavy blasters to cut through the wall, and Moff Gideon delivers this thing about. We're setting up a heavy repeater out here. It's an eWeb. Cara Sylvia Dune of Alderaan might have recognized it when she and many of her other units were shot out of the air with its predecessor, and was like, oh, they said it. They said eWeb. They're showing it. They're actually making it. It's one of the heavier, if not the heaviest, man-movable pieces of artillery in the Star Wars, in the Imperial Star Wars sort of arsenal. Any heavier than that, and you're looking at a craft to move it or carry it or fire it, and this thing is just awesome. You'll recognize it from Empire Strikes Back when the Millennium Falcon's trying to take off from Hoth.
Yeah.
And the stormtroopers, they get out that huge gun.
Okay.
That was an eWeb as well.
Oh.
And had they gotten it set up, they could have shot that Millennium Falcon out of the sky. It's an amazing gun.
That's so cool. See, this is why we do this. It's for insight like that. It's okay. I had no idea.
That was a huge payoff for me. I was just like, oh my goodness. Oh, absolutely. I tell you what, I've got 1,000 of them. I want to trade off. And is there something you?
No, keep going.
Okay.
Keep going.
The IG unit. The very moment it showed on screen, I was just melting with joy because it, as you may or may not know, once they dispatched the former EU or expanded universe, there's an awful lot that is no longer included in the Star Wars canon.
Right, which as soon as Disney bought Lucasfilm, they were like, okay, all the comics and books and anything that is not these movies, this cartoon series, and this is all gone.
Right.
So
it's Legends.
Yeah, which is Legends, although there's some stuff that has been kind of creeping back in.
Oh, yeah. And I admit, I went full-on neckbeard rage when I heard about it. And I was like, this is the worst thing that's ever happened to any franchise ever. But honestly, from a monetary stance, and I'm not just talking like trying to make money, but trying to keep your money in the same house, I can understand that. I can actually understand why you would make it to where thousands of authors no longer have the right to claim in any income on the stuff that's going to be produced. So I get that.
Well, and I liked hearing that just from the stance that they were putting out new comic books, and that they would be working very closely with the creators, making sure that everything was in canon. Everything would be part of everything they're talking about.
The story group's supposed to...
Kathleen Kennedy.
Yes, yes. And I, honestly, the body of work that's come out since then has been pretty top-notch from everything I've touched.
Read the first 3 trades of the Star Wars and Darth Vader comic.
Oh, they're so good.
And then when Dr. Aphra comes...
Yes.
Oh, my God. What
Absolutely. Yeah. And my favorite droid... At least in the comics,
000.
000.
Yeah,
I love 000.
Oh my God!
Oh, they've reskinned a protocol droid in all black.
Yeah.
And gave him red eyes, and he does nothing but expertly torture people.
Yeah.
And talk about it in just the most morbid, mechanical, detached. Talking about organics like they're just it's gold.
It's
every single
beautiful.
line is gold.
No, it's weird that as soon as we heard that all the comics and everything would be canon and be part of the grand unified theory of Star Wars.
Yeah.
And then you hear the things that have come out from the Rise of Skywalker about how
7, 8, and 9.
yeah 7, 8, 9 there was no unified plan.
Right.
There was no nothing. Like Kathleen Kennedy was on record like we didn't have comics or TV shows or anything to draw
Right.
from.
To pull from, yeah.
And it's the oh my god, yes you do.
You've got so much.
So
Yeah.
much. And that's really what that story group's supposed to have been.
Yeah.
So on The Mandalorian,
Yeah.
because I definitely have some opinions on 7, 8, and 9. Most of them are good. Most of them are good.
Yeah.
But yeah, 7, 8, 9, just real quickly on that one though. Every trilogy should have a beginning, a middle, and an end. And when you allow so much creative input from different directors who don't necessarily work so well or communicate so well with each other on specificities, you're going to have what we had in 9.
Yeah.
But thank goodness, thank goodness, The Mandalorian doesn't have that issue.
Yeah. Which
We got Jon Favreau
Yeah.
and Dave Filoni,
from Clone Wars
from
and
Clone
Rebels
Wars,
and,
creator of what is currently my second favorite character, Ahsoka. They are executive producers of The Mandalorian.
yeah.
Episode 1 was actually directed by.
Oh, can I say chapter 1? Because when we say episode 1 in this fandom, obviously, I know you know.
Well, yeah.
Chapter 1 of
Chapter
Mandalorian.
1, thank
no,
you.
I'm being a
No,
total, I'm being a jerk. I'm being a total jerk.
Absolutely. My goodness. Take away a Star Wars card right now. No, you're right. You're right.
You're fine. I'm
That's
just I'm a total jerk.
This is how little I get to talk to other Star Wars fans.
Yeah.
Right.
I've never been corrected on that in my life.
And you're not wrong. That is the first episode.
thank you so
of the
much for
show,
that.
you
What
know?
he meant
Yeah,
was
absolutely.
actually.
Actually,
you know,
somebody give me some glasses
Star
to put on
Wars-
the bridge of my nose.
Star Wars nerds, right?
Yeah, you're
So-
absolutely fine. I hope I didn't.
No, not at all.
But yeah, the episode 1 was definitely
Yes, but in that you got in that chapter you have IG-11 version of the IG-88 droids.
Yep.
You just mentioned some other droids that the Black Skin Protocol droid. One thing that I love, you said kind of Easter eggs in The Mandalorian, is anytime someone says Easter egg, it's not necessarily Easter egg in my book. A lot of times it's just a callback. Sometimes it's fan service. It doesn't necessarily mean it's Easter egg, but that is the lingo that everybody understands is Easter egg. So they had a lot of callbacks. I'm just going to try to force myself to say Easter egg for now on.
Yeah.
Not just tonight, but for the rest of my life, because that's the way it is. The IG-11, the droid you just mentioned, and in Chapter 1, The Mandalorian looked at a droid that was going to give him some transportation, and he's basically like, no droids.
Yeah.
Straight callback from the cantina scene of we don't serve their kind here.
Yeah.
And people always say, how come there's this droid bias? How come there's so many people that hate droids? Well, because it's Star Wars, and there's a thing called Clone Wars.
Yeah, where all the droids were out to get. Yeah.
Yeah, and that is referenced later on in The Mandalorian.
Yeah, it's a thing that it seems to have gone unnoticed by a lot of the creative people in charge of Star Wars. That, oh yeah, what a horrific thing! All these droids showing up all over. Yeah, like.
Well, and it's also a fantastic tipping of the hand to the EU now non-canon, the droid uprising that happened in the Bounty Hunters book, where when IG-88 was first activated aboard one of the Death Star labs, like his first 3 thoughts are, I think therefore I am therefore I must defend myself, and doesn't recognize anyone in the room, like speeds up his processor, just absolutely slaughters everyone on the entire wing and runs.
And activates. Isn't there 4 other ones that he activates in
Oh,
that?
yes, and,
Also,
like,
so now you got
simultaneously.
4 of those guys.
Yeah, and they all think hive-mindedly. So it is, that uprising that he instills, where lots of droids, I mean, like servant droids and stuff, they start turning and killing people. It's another part. It's harkening back to that same thing that existed before the droids of the episode 1 or any other part of that precluded the Clone Wars. But I love any callback to that, because it's an amazing book. It's a great story. I absolutely love it.
Yeah. So Again, IG-88 though, that's the IG model that we grew up with. I'm 42. Buck's the young pup of the bunch. What is he, like 25 or so?
At least.
So you're doing good. So IG-88 though, one thing, callback / Easter egg, or let's just say one thing I really loved on that chapter 1 was that IG-11 that you mentioned. And when that dude strode out into the middle of that courtyard, cameras swirling all around, hips pivoting, 360 back and forth, arms doing the same thing, and arcing back and forth.
Yeah.
Was
and it's showing how, what an efficient machine.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Absolute best fight scene, non-saber, in Star Wars to date, in my opinion. And it happened on The Mandalorian, a Disney Plus series. It didn't happen any of the episodes 1 through 9. It that great of a fight scene, non-lightsaber, happened with Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau at the helm.
Yep.
And it was, well, we grew up with the space opera, and that was just space western right there in front of our eyes.
Yeah, and it's kind of neat to see, Star Wars get, which it in and of itself is taking a genre and twisting it and repurposing it, doing the same thing again. It's the find a genre,
and that's a good thing. I dare say it's a good thing.
I mean,
being a Star Wars fan, you kind of get used to that.
Oh yeah,
right?
Yeah,
I mean, you do really get used to it.
Yeah, like and good things have come about it. Like Nick Nolte looks the best he's looked in years.
Quill, yes. Wheel.
Oh man, I didn't actually hear about his casting, but the moment he spoke, I was like, "That's someone doing a really good Nick Nolte."
Yeah.
Oh, that's really funny. I'll have to look that up later. Oh my God, it was Nick Nolte. Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah, some of the cameos were a lot of fun. Brian Posehn, like every time I see him as Brian Posehn, it's the well. Although,
right.
When I first met Brian Posehn, which is not a thing that everyone can say.
Yeah.
It sounds like I'm about to and here's a cool story.
You're the first person I've heard say that.
Oh well, so I was at Comic-Con looking through Silver Age back issue boxes because that's again another sentence that sounds
you like
highfalutin.
comics?
Yeah. So there's like a really awful move that you can do to someone like when you're also looking for comics and someone's getting near what you're wanting to look. You can start looking in the back of their box and just kind of shove them out of the way.
Yes.
And that is what Mr. Brian Posehn and his gigantic meat paws did.
Nice.
His hands are like 8 feet wide. Nice. And he just in the back of the box and then pushes me over. Because, I'm not a small fella. I was lost.
You got Posehn, I suppose. Yeah.
Woo!
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No,
that's
great.
That's a great story.
But just all the other little cameos, like Bill Burr was
Clancy Brown.
Which I didn't I didn't look into any part of the series beforehand. It was just let's let this thing surprise me. I didn't know that he was on it, but like the minute he made any kind of noise, I was like, that's
right?
Like he did the I was like, that's Clancy Brown.
He's like he like grunts and then says tiny, and I was like, I think that's Clancy Brown. That's Clancy Brown. Yeah,
he was sounding a little Kurgan today.
Exactly. Absolutely.
So there's some Mandalorian type stuff that I want to get into the nitty grittiness of it. But before we get into the particulars of the Mandalorian type culture, I just want to say what a good job that show has done to pull from all of Star Wars. Because all
painted with many palettes.
Which right after it ended, Disney Plus recommended me watch Rebels. I was like, no. And I was like, I've got nothing else going on. Hero, what do you think? And she's, let's try it. What's the worst? Because I gave it a shot once, and I just watched, I guess, the little shorts that they made leading up to it. And I hated them with good reason. They're terrible.
They really are.
Yeah. If you have absolutely no other context,
I had the same thing happen with me. I think I've told you before about Clone Wars.
Yeah.
I knew the Genndy Tartakovsky Clone Wars.
Yeah,
that was, to me, I'll go so far as to say that's probably the most Star Wars any Star Wars has ever starred or warred.
Yes.
For me. And when I heard they were making something based off of that, I got hyped. And then they made a movie for a pilot, and it was not good.
Kieran and I went and watched it in theater.
Oh, so did Jeff and I. We went and watched it. We were excited until we saw it.
Ooh.
And you couldn't get me to touch that series with a 10-foot pole.
About Jabba's cousin's voice.
Zero the Hutt.
Oh.
Couldn't take it. Did not like it. I hated her when she was even on the show. It was more than 3 or 4 years after season 6 had ended that someone said to me, I mean, like more than one person said to me in a row, okay, I know you really don't want to try The Clone Wars, but check out The Clone Wars. Just try a couple episodes. If you don't like it, let it go. I watched a couple episodes and I did not turn back. That was actually the most active I was ever on Twitter. For some reason, I just decided to start tweeting about every episode. So I have one tweet per absolutely every single episode of The Clone Wars for fun. I guess it just helped me kind of spur along.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that show, Mother Talzin, I will never forget that voice acting together with the technical achievement with the two voices echoed. I don't care what she says. I want her on screen. I want her saying more things. Read a recipe, please, Mother Talzin. The Witches of Dagoth they showed. I've only read about that. They never show.
Did you ever? Did you watch Rebels?
I have not yet watched Rebels. I feel bad.
If
but
you
I
do,
need to.
there's callbacks to it. There's
Yes.
like they address that.
Yeah. Oh man.
Like
so good.
Maul,
I need to.
Maul has like there was a thing that when you hear that Maul survived episode 1,
Right.
you hear about this encounter that he's going to have for the rest of Turns out that happens in Rebels.
Interesting.
Yeah, I will say it was quick. Like it was this. Oh, that's how you do it, Star Wars.
Okay.
Yeah, but so they towards the end of Mandalorian, they have the black saber. They have all this mention of anything and everything.
If I'm not correct, he says pushing up at the glasses on his face. I think that was actually a vibroblade, but it's being referred to as a black saber.
Yeah.
Because we're not quite sure what it is yet. We did see vibroblades earlier in the series, which make me think that they're still hinting at that, because that's a lot of what Empire used to fight lightsabers.
Oh, okay.
They can conflict with lightsabers at least.
Well, go ahead.
But yeah, no, everybody calling it black saber. I'm calling it black saber too. I'm not sure if it's a vibroblade or a black saber.
Well, I'm calling it the dark saber.
Yeah,
I'll go with that. I'll go with that. Absolutely. Yeah.
Since is Dave Filoni doing the show,
Right.
He made it super popular in Clone Wars and then in Rebels. Like it's the thing that unites the.
Gotcha. Okay.
Just to, I'm gonna have to go definitely being the dark saber there because of a little show that most people have not watched Dave Filoni in, or Jon Favreau, called The Chef, and that is on Netflix.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
And Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau went down to Lucasfilm Ranch, picked fresh veggies from the garden, and made a meal for some of the people that were at Lucasfilm filming some stuff, I think, for the Clone Wars coming up. February 26th, right?
Yeah.
27th.
22nd, I think. Yeah.
In February.
Sometime.
February 20th.
Yeah.
Season 7. And if I remember right, it's... I can't say episode on this one because it's the Chef show. So episode 5 of The Chef, Dave Filoni and
Jon
Favreau are in there. And 3 times they brought about the darksaber.
Oh, okay.
So
take that,
So,
Jarrod.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
no.
take that.
And the only thing I have to go on is the visual effects. If you notice, with every lightsaber we've ever seen on screen, it has a very solid visual effect, with Kylo Ren exception, obviously. Whereas anytime we see a vibroblade on screen, it has a wavy sort of expression to show to convey that it's vibrating on a molecular level to be able to cut through nearly anything.
That's the little daggers that they had was a vibroblade.
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, I would say that the thing is the darksaber, and then the other one is the vibroblade.
That was the only thing I was like, is it a? I can't tell what effects they're trying to use here, and the only thing that got me was the lack of a clear sound effect. It wasn't the known sound effect, which if I recreate, I'll embarrass myself. But but I agree with you, and I think it would be much more exciting if it were a darksaber. So I'm willing to say I'm so sorry that I'm even taking a moment to make this.
Fine.
But darksaber sounds so much more fun for there to be in the series at all. So that's what I'd certainly. Right. I'm very much on board for that.
Hope so.
Especially if Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni are big on that, then it should be that.
Yeah, which this will come into the question that I have for you. So in the Mandalorian show, he didn't take off his helmet.
Right.
Part of the culture is that you just don't take off the helmet. In the
Mandalorian show,
in the Clone Wars, in the Rebels, there's some other Mandalorians they totally do.
Yeah. Buckets that come off.
Yeah,
well, correct.
What up with that?
Okay, so from what I understand, the tribalism that they constantly refer to in the Clone Wars, and from what I understand, the Rebels, which I have not watched Rebels yet, and what they even allude to in some of the EU stuff that's no longer canon. Each tribe has different rules.
Okay.
So at any point you can say this is a tribe of Mandalore. And you can say that's not the way of Mandalore. This is how we interpret the way of Mandalore to be.
Okay.
So my favorite part is how hard and fast they establish that rule, because I actually like when a writer or a producer puts himself into a corner, because I think we see a lot more creativity there.
Yeah.
Right.
It doesn't take it takes no less than a 5-year-old to say, there's going to be a plot point about that. This is the biggest Chekhov's gun of the entire series thus far, and we only had that one shot of him taking it off when he's facing the window when you can see him.
So on that, because I have some experience with the Mandalorian culture via Rebels clones, as well as, this is not Boba Fett we're talking about.
Correct.
Totally not at all.
Who wasn't even Mandalorian.
Right.
He doesn't follow a tribe. He doesn't have a tribe.
But he's got the cool sticker on his shoulder.
He does, because he is wearing Mandalorian armor, and he did... Sorry. In the EU, his name was Jastor Muriel, and he grew up on Mandalore and did follow a tribe of Mandalore. Outside the EU, he was trained by Jastor Muriel and his Jango Fett's cloned son thing.
All right.
And so he learned from Mandalorians, but he never really never pledged to a tribe, never actually did that sort of thing.
Wow. Yeah.
Which is why he's the most versatile bounty hunter alive, because he doesn't have any loyalties, which is great.
Would you say on chapter 1, the first time they go into the underground, where all the other Mandalorians...
The Enclave? Yes.
Yes, thank you. So the first time I saw that, talking about the helmet, we're now rewatching again. My youngest daughter has decided, because of Baby Yoda being super cute, that she wants to watch this, and I cannot be so happy that my youngest daughter wants to watch Star Wars with me.
Right.
So, the second time through on chapter 1, it shows him going to the Enclave, and I'm going to ask 2 questions. Is that multiple tribes? Is as in the armorer, is she over just that single tribe? And I guess the next one isn't a question, it's more of an observation. The second time I watched it I saw some Mandalorian children running. No armor except for the helmet on their head. And the first time I watched it, I'm like, look at the little Mandalorian kiddos playing. That's cute as cute could be. And the second time I watched it, either my wife or my kid said, they're training. Little bitty kids already got their helmet on.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, are they just training with that helmet on, or are they going to keep it on?
Okay, in answer to those 2 questions, I have to only go with what the show has said, because there's no telling what all we know is what the armorer has done as far as interpreted the Mandalorian way. When she stopped Paz Pivla I think it's definitely Paz. I always forget his first name. The heavy infantry guy.
Yeah.
When he accused the Mandalorian of being a coward for trading with the ex-imperialists.
That was such a great scene.
Oh, fantastic! Voiced by Jon Favreau, by
Yeah.
the way. So we've had very little interpretation, so we don't know what tribe that is, or if it's multiple tribes. The only conclusion we can come to is from the Night of a Thousand Tears. It was only mentioned once in the show, and is only ever mentioned in the show. It's not EU. It's not rooted in anything thus far. But it's where they talk about all of the training younglings in the field were like murdered horrendously, and so that's why they call it the 9,000 Tears. And that's also why, as opposed to raising necessarily exclusively Mandalorian born children, they're raising foundlings, which is why they keep saying foundlings are our future, this is the way. And so my theory thus far, because again they haven't revealed that much, is because of and again I love hard and fast rules. At one point the armorer asks the Mandalorian, have you ever removed your helmet? And he said no. And she said, has anyone else ever removed it for you? And he said no. Obviously we get sort of a feel that means in front of another person because of the window scene. But more than likely what they're saying is that training starts as soon as a foundling is, I don't know a word for it because it's not a word. Of a certain training age. And so it's, it could also be that tribe, because you remember they said our strength is in our secrecy. When our numbers, our strength used to be in our numbers. They could even be inducing kids at a younger age because secrecy is being held. Again, this is all theory. I don't actually know this. This is totally shot in the dark. Maybe there's clean to secrecy more so when wearing a helmet younger. But that's I'm having to piece that together from what they've said in the show, because a lot of the tribal stuff that they hint at and they sort of orbit around, they never get to a real core of it, of exactly what's going on.
Right.
So that's why we're having to just go off of what they've said thus far. So.
And knowing what I know with Dave Filoni and more Dave Filoni than Jon Favreau, they know.
Right.
Which we can't say that, again, referencing back to 7, 8, 9.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody really knew exactly the specificities of how things are going to go. But with my feeling on Dave Filoni, he knows.
Yeah, which we'll jump over to the Rise of Skywalker and all that other business, because I think it's safe to say that it's not a bad movie.
No.
No. I liked it a lot more than Death of the Jedi. What's the
Last of the Jedi?
Last of the Jedi. That's the one.
The divisive one. Divisive one.
That one, it made me done with Star Wars. Like, it sounds like it's it upset me so much that it was you took away everything that I liked about Star Wars. Okay.
So, I think we could have a minimum of 5 podcasts, like, per movie discussing them.
Yeah.
But I was thinking of something that I want to propose, that we all just do thumbs up or thumbs down on 7, 8, and 9. What do you think?
Okay.
So like 7?
Yeah, thumbs up.
8? I'm going to go mid. Because there's a lot that I liked about it.
Oh, don't get me wrong. There's a lot that I liked about it too.
And 9?
9, it's
nine's up.
it's
kind of
mostly up.
Kind of mostly up. Yeah,
But
so
I am not an 8 hater. I just don't care for it. It just seems like as of 9, working on fixing so many of the issues that me as well as several other people who really didn't like 8, and that's like you just said, thumbs up, thumbs down. People that liked 8, a lot of them don't like 9 because they just got retconned, or not. They kind of got course directed.
So the problem with 8 is that it wanted to turn Star Wars on its head, which you can do once or twice, but this took every Star Wars like trope. It was like nope and nope. And also no. And, you want this thing? No. And it was just this whole movie of just getting shot down constantly. It's you really like this? You want to see this thing? No.
I saw it twice at the theaters because we had already pre-bought the tickets. And that. Then I watched it one more time all the way through.
Yeah.
Which was leading up to 9. Now I have it on Blu-ray. I have it on 4K. And,
of course.
And I will let it play, just because it was the newest one. But I you know what? I am going to give it another shot though after 9 to see if there is some stuff that I can now grab hold of in 8 to be like, okay, that they've kind of brought it back into 9, that might make a little bit more sense.
What it does is when you sit down and watch it, looking for the objectivity in it, you'll notice that it perfectly represents all 7 movies that came before it, or like it goes like
every stage of Star Wars we've had since then.
Yeah, like it's
even from Caravan of Courage and the Droids cartoon show and everything.
Here's your pod racing in form of
another
the horses. Like here's another super heavy-handed thing. Here's a really cool, well thought out, planned battle. Here's this. Here's Yoda being goofy. Like
here's the O.J. Simpson police chase.
Yeah,
super slow mo.
Who the hell's DJ? Why the hell's he in that movie?
I don't know for a fact, but I'm gonna say someone said, "Well, we don't have a really big name. We have Laura Dern. No, we don't have a really big name. We've got fine.
Let's get Benicio del Toro.
Benicio del Toro. Okay, cool. Let's do that. Yeah. And I wasn't exactly in love with his accent.
Yeah.
Because you could
Which
tell
was his own creation.
You could tell he was trying to do like a non-planetary accent, which, as an acting choice, it's brilliant. Don't do a British voice because there wasn't a Great Britain in Star Wars.
Yeah.
Don't do any number of accents. And he made one up, and that's really great. Don't do that. That's terrible, man. Oh, gosh. Oh, man.
Well, and it's so the Empire just paid him off and didn't kill him? What?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't see Moff Gideon doing that.
Yeah.
What do they ask him? What assurances do I have that you'll hold your end of the bargain? And he's like, you have none.
None, really, honestly.
Yeah.
I'm just holding up the guns.
Yeah. I mean, that's where a lot of my problems with 8 kind of comes from, because it's you can have this or this, but you can't have both, and you're doing both. Like the ending is the perfect example. You can have the kid force a broom into his hand, or you can hold it like a lightsaber as it pans out, or you can look at your ring and see that you're supporting the...
did all 3 of those things make it to the same scene within about 60 seconds of each other?
God, yeah. Like you get one of those, and then that's there's your hope inspiration.
That hand can't get any heavier,
in the background of it all, too.
Yeah.
Okay, so the only thing I feel that I'm justified in opposing in Episode 8 is Admiral Akbar's death off screen.
I totally agree. I could not agree more.
I would rather he died slipping on a banana peel with like a slide whistle. No, I'd be like, you know what? Admiral, I love it. Yeah.
I was so upset about that. In the theater, I'm like, they did not just treat it's a trap that way.
And the voice actor has passed, so I think they were. A part of me feels that they were cleaning house.
Wait, are you saying that they should have taken out all the people that had died and let the living ones stay in the...
No.
Can I tell
obviously.
You what I actually have the biggest problem with that scene of the Admiral Akbar death is because we are talking about Admiral Akbar, who is the Rebel Alliance, the Republics are... The Rebel Alliance, the Resistance, their version of Thrawn. He is the military space admiral genius.
Yeah,
he and Mon Mothma were the duality. Absolutely,
he was the genius of. He was the tactician of the space battle, and she was the technician of the politics.
He recognized the signs of a trap, not because the door had closed, because he saw it coming. I mean, obviously it was a little obvious at that point, but I think that's the point: is that he's supposed to be a brilliant tactician, and
he was sitting there, and Princess Leia was actually giving him commands of how to proceed in a battle. Immediately, as a Star Wars fan, on that, I'm like, Admiral Akbar Princess Leia, I love you, but Admiral Akbar does not need you telling him how to fight a battle with his own navy.
I can go back and forth on that. I mean, just from a complete logic perspective, who would you put in command of a battle where you can't see what's coming? Do you want someone who could tap into the Force and could see what's coming,
yes.
or do you want? I mean, or do you want someone who can't? And I'm not saying that he's wrong. I'm not saying that he's wrong. It was the death that sets me off so much, because they could have used him in any way. They could have even had Holdo tell her plan, and then Akbar makes a brave sacrifice, or he stays. And they're both together, and it would have been this.
Oh wow,
this great,
that'd have been
super cool.
The other captains or the other commanders of their ships stayed.
Or she could have asked him a question. What would happen if I? Yeah.
All right. So here's the thing. This situation. In this one little scene where if we could have done this, that is every problem with that movie. If you could have just done a little.
Yeah.
I do think now that we've had what I lovingly refer to as Rise of Skywalker, episode 8.5/9.
Woo!
I do think now that we have that, I do think some of those little things that you need to change, they might not, because a lot of people want to say that 9 wiped away 8.
A good portion of it did.
I want to watch it, and did it wipe as many things away as we said, or course corrected what they did and brought it more into the story?
I think that it didn't necessarily wipe away anything or course correct. I think it just bulldozed right on over.
Oh yeah, some of it definitely was.
The most heavy-handed thing for me is the lightsaber.
Yeah.
Ray throws the lightsaber and he catches it, and it was obviously undoing the scene where he disrespects the lightsaber, and where he calls it a laser sword, and where he plays down his and Jedi's ability and all that sort of thing. Even that felt a little.
You see, that was 2 jokes right there that they tried to do. One, because he flippantly threw it. That was supposed to have been a joke. It's supposed to have been showing his disdain and how he's just acting out in front of her. That's supposed to have been kind of funny. It wasn't. 2, when we'll just explain him catching that. That's not how a lightsabers or a Jedi treats their lightsaber. J.J. Abrams, when it comes to getting Star Wars jokes, because Star Wars jokes a little bit can be kind of corny, just a tad bit, you know. He can tell a Star Wars joke. That flipping it over your shoulder, that's not really a Star Wars joke as much as it is like, you just don't do that.
I would have. Oh gosh, you're exactly right about the whole. I would have done it differently, because it's a great scene. I think it's a great way to symbolize his feeling like he's separated from the Force, that he's not a Jedi anymore, and that this relic that holds so much gravitas for millions of people in the real world is just a toy to him.
Yeah.
I would have had him disassemble it, like John Woo, Kung Fu action style. Oh yeah. Or as a like take it with the Force and then just wave it like this, and the pieces just fall. Like it would have been more.
Yeah.
Wow.
Whoa.
He could have been like Green Lantern on it when it comes to disassembling it.
As opposed to he just.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's supposed to have been a joke.
Yeah.
It did not.
For the purposes of recording, I was just mumbling and not saying anything, by the way.
Yeah.
Because I don't know what to say. Every time I see that scene, it's just sort of a...
Yeah. There were just so many so close. Yeah.
Was there anybody else on that set was like, no.
Yeah. So
okay, let's if I can at least say, because I could talk about 8 all day, all day. From 9, I do this with a lot of films, and especially with films that I'm invested in the fandom of, like tiny shout out to Speed Racer. As a Speed Racer fan, that was the best film of my life. From a technical perspective, it was a really weird, trippy thing that I don't understand. I understand how they put this on film, but and the same way with Episode 9.
But you got your Speed Racer.
You know what
I mean?
Yeah.
You got your Speed Racer.
With 9, as a Star Wars fan, I loved every beat, every single beat that happened. I was like, oh god, this is just every single rise and fall hit so hard, and it was wonderful. Analyzing it from a film perspective, what was that cacophonous mess? Who didn't edit this thing into... every single beat was... hey, was that cool? Too bad. You can't relish it, because another one's coming.
Yeah, the action sequences were hard and fast, constantly.
It reminds me of the Hobbit. It reminds me of the Hobbit film, the second one. When they're going through the cave.
When
they're going through the cave, and you're just like, oh, they're literally going to tell us to roll with this by making a rock roll with them next to them, and they're just going to survive everything, and it's all okay.
Which they probably came up with on set that day.
Yeah.
Got a rock?
It's it's what it felt like. It felt like that same sort of discounted, bloated thing. Again, outside of a fandom perspective, it felt like a really, really poorly made film. But man, all the beats were really great.
It didn't give you time to. There was
Process.
no pee breaks. At all.
Yeah.
Supposedly they were going to make 2 movies out of it. Like there was a plan to make more than one movie out of it.
There's so much coming out now. Like J.J. Abrams wanted to make 2 movies. He wanted to have this. Apparently, at one point, he was screaming at the higher ups, like, well then, why put my name on it at all? Put written and directed by Lucasfilm,
Right,
like that. And it's oh my god,
right.
Yeah.
We're living in a post Snyder world.
So
where, that sort of thing is going to surface and influence a lot of people, I think.
So I saw it twice that day, and if they would have made it 3 hours, they probably. I would have been okay with it.
You could have used 15 more minutes worth of all right, let's. There are things that have come out that
every scene could use maybe 1 or a half minute even.
So
more.
Turns out when Rey stabbed Kylo and ran him through and healed him all that, when she healed him, apparently she healed the Kylo Ren out of him, right? And it was left with a beat up Ben Solo, and then Princess Leia used up her life force to put Han Solo there to tip the scales.
She brought him forward out of his memory.
Yeah,
I mean, it's there's
some explanation there would have been.
There's a few lines they cross really hard and really fast, but I think what they were doing is trying to save. Well, okay, not save so much on budget, but save or conserve what they had of Carrie Fisher on film.
No, but just a little line.
Oh, could have been great. It'd been
Give me 3 seconds of someone she's using the force. Just anything.
Or maybe even just someone looking at her on the bed where we can just see, whatever actor they've got there, and her saying something like, he'd never listen to me. He'd only listen to...
Yeah.
And then bam. That'd have been perfect.
Yeah.
And I think on the second viewing of it, that was more apparent, but it definitely wasn't as apparent the first time.
Right. And that's what I mean.
It wasn't apparent.
There's
Let's just say
little
not even
choices that could have been made along the way to make it flow so much easier as a movie. And could we not have gone with another half hour of Babu Frick?
Oh gosh,
Babu!
I'm ready to watch the Babu Frick show.
Yes.
Yes.
And when I first saw him, I didn't think I was going to like him. When he first spoke, I didn't think I was going to like him. And my goodness.
First time he was on screen, I was like, I hate him. Second time he was on screen, I was like, I hate him even more. Third time, I was like, oh, right, I'm in.
Yes.
I need to go buy that action figure. I need everything. I need a t-shirt.
He needs to make it on season 2 of Mandalorian. Yeah, we'll have Baby Yoda and Babu Frick. Oh my God. Goodness gracious. I'll start collecting the Funko Pops again.
Yeah.
I think they've actually put themselves in a really interesting situation. Speaking of The Mandalorian, my favorite set of lines in the whole series.
Which there's a lot of good lines.
Oh, there's so many good ones. My favorite, back-to-back lines have to be at the end of Chapter 8, when Grief Karga, Carl Weathers, he gives them their TV setup. He basically said, and we'll see your adventures every week as you try to figure out how to get that Baby Yoda, wink, merchandise back into stores. It was just, the whole thing was, I was dying with every line that was you're just setting him up for a weekly adventure. I mean, I love it, but this is just hilarious.
And I do love that weekly adventure aspect of the tiny stories, but still having a nice.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and the armorer saying stories. You have to treat him like you as if you were its father. It was okay, all right, you don't have to keep going with that, but I'm still enjoying this setup. You're welding it into place. You're just making sure.
As soon as they had mentioned Life Day, it's the.
So I meant to mention that earlier. Every time, gosh, we'll go back to IG-11. Every single time they show something from outside the normal canon, contained with what is now considered the legends, that brings it into the canon.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So as soon as IG-11 exists, the possibility of us seeing IG-88 or any part of his story exists now. And so every time they do that, I just explode with glee.
Yeah.
when they did that with they totally teased it in episode 7. It might have been a small moment for anyone else, but it was when they walk into Maz's place and they show a particular helmet. And that helmet, it doesn't show up anywhere else other than in Genndy Tartakovsky's Clone Wars.
It's that red,
that weird wriggly thing that doesn't get a name that we don't know what it is.
No, he had a name.
Oh, they did give him like a position name.
Well, because we had the action figure form. It's through not use of Google, yeah.
Yes, no, it was Google.
Yeah, we totally Googled it. Dirge,
yes.
Yeah.
When I saw that helmet in Maz's place, I lost my crap. I just thought, no way they're referring to that.
Which, after Googling it, has a Mandalorian skull thing on its chest. Mm-hmm. What up with that?
I don't know. There's not a whole lot on Dirge. Mm-hmm. I even accidentally, I even scrolled down far enough, and not in Google, to see
maybe Wikipedia.
yes, indeed. That apparently there's also. At first, I thought I saw comic frames of something else, but there's also DURGE, which is something else in Star Wars. And well, anyway,
fair enough.
Little things like that just made me lose my mind when they referred to it. That just. They didn't do much with, but that doesn't mean that it can't exist. So it still has the possibility.
And that's the cool thing about all this. It seems like there's so many other places for it to go. Mm-hmm. But on the other hand, it also kind of feels like it's been kind of used up. Like,
okay, so I actually purposefully prepared a detail for this for the not argument. For the point to be made that it seems like it does. It feels like it's run its course.
Yeah,
it does. There are so many pockets that they have not yet even come close to touching on. One of my favorites is the Corporate Sector Authority. There is a small place in the Outer Rim called the Corporate Sector, and the Corporate Sector Authority is what runs it and what polices the place. Imperials won't send any craft, Star Destroyer or even Super Star Destroyer, near it because they have technology that they won't even talk about. That's apparently just so big and bad that the Empire doesn't even cross the line into the corporate sector.
Huh.
And it's like, whoa, what is this? Oh my God.
Okay.
And the reason, it is the Outer Rim. There's not a lot of Empire presence out there. Mm-hmm. And there are other species who have, according to legends, been thumping the Empire anytime they kind of crossed over into the universe too much.
Yeah, that's one of those where do you think that we will get to a point where they will want to remake Star Wars? Like, do you think that we're going to have something where they'll screw up a movie so many times in a row that they're like, you know what, let's redo this?
So a complete retcon.
Or do they just abandon that and do that? Nope, we're having Ewok adventures over here.
I can answer that with a lot of authority. My sources tell me that Disney likes money.
Yeah.
And if they can make a few billion, then yes. And will people be upset? Yes. And there'll be a lot of headlines. And those negative headlines will also make them money. And the positive headlines will also make them money. And then they'll fix some of those things everybody had a problem with. Ep.9.
Well, because I mean,
things and
hindsight being what it is, this is one of those where it'd be really easy to boil it down and come up with, okay, so, Obi-Wan isn't lying to Luke in Episode 4 about knowing Anakin and all the weird stuff. Like it's
nothing would surprise me on that.
Yeah, but the other argument comes in with but there are so many other pockets of
stuff out there,
of factions,
because
that they can bring in.
You either see the Outer Rim or close to it, but very seldom do you see the inner ring. Like here is the everything, because you see these space rednecks come and topple an empire by blowing up their cool car.
Right? Yeah. No, it's. Yeah, you're exactly right. It does feel like we're seeing everything that's going on, and it does have that sense to it. I think you're right about them wanting, not wanting money, being programmed to make money at all costs. So yeah, they'll keep generating content. I think that, and if I can theorize about the future of Star Wars, I think that a remake or a reshoot or a reimagining of 4, 5, and 6, I think they are in the cards, and not just because, hey, why do their haircuts look like they're from the 70s and their haircuts look like they're from the 2000s, despite the fact that it was 20 years ago. Yeah, so not just because of that. But have you seen those? Oh, they've got a name. They've got a real specific name for the little moments they've recreated. The Star Wars channel on YouTube, they produce these little clips, and they are reproductions of really famous moments, like when Luke fought Vader. Yeah, but they're done kind of borderline anime style, which it lends itself very well to lightsaber combat.
Yeah.
And and they're a little more exciting on a little faster pace. The beats are exactly the same. The choreography isn't the same. The dialogue isn't exactly the same. But it feels like a test market to see what people think of those major. I'm going to go so far as to say holy moments to the bibliograph that is Star Wars. Are people gonna like that? Are they gonna like any version of it? I think they're testing to see if we want that. And honestly, I would kind of like to see it. I would like to see a borderline anime remake of 4, 5, and 6. As long as they hit all their major beats, I'd be excited to see what they could produce that would be fun without rearranging canon.
Yeah.
Because they've already done that once.
Oh, yeah. And it would be a lot easier to get. I mean, not that it's hard to get children involved in Star Wars. Obviously, it is laser aimed at so many children.
You need a baby Yoda.
Well,
it's a good song.
It's
like
difficult to get them to watch 4, 5, and 6.
I was going to say, you say that Disney doesn't seem to understand how or why, but they're not selling nearly the Star Wars stuff that they used to. They're like, why? We're doing the same old stuff. They're not realizing.
I can tell you why. Anytime you have a mom and pop bootstrap company that has sold merchandise or a service or whatever, they get purchased by a bigger company. The larger company doesn't understand the reason people attached themselves to the mom and pop, to that bootstrap to begin with, especially in this day of social media.
I think you're saying it best to say big company, little company, because it's true in all genres of media or anything like that. Anytime a larger company thinks they have latched on to what people like about any given product, so often I find myself going, nope, that's not what we liked.
And what we had at the beginning of Star Wars from 76, you actually had Lucas negotiating the toy contracts, saying exactly what they can do, what they can't do. Here's what's feasible to do with toys. He would work with them, and Disney they're going to own everything one day. I love Disney. I don't like Disney. You know what I mean? So they don't sell near as much stuff as they used to, except for the fact that the population is growing. As long as they can keep on attracting the younger kids, a lot of the moments in these movies that me as a 40-year-old man have a problem with, my daughters love. I didn't care for Jar Jar Binks, but you know what? I love Jar Jar Binks now. Why? Because that's what my daughters fell in love with immediately. So
I worry about. Go ahead.
They get to grow with them, and so some of these things that we get to see in the new Star Wars, especially coming up, moving forward, people need to get prepared for the hero's journey to start again for all these characters.
Yeah,
they're going to start getting into a bad situation. They're going to start putting together weapons and building a party and developing the quest. It's going to be the Lord of the Rings, the hero's journey that has happened since, the Odyssey. It's going to happen. So when people, as the new stuff does come out, there's going to be a lot of complaining that it's too kiddified, that it's too simple, and they're going to want kids to grow with.
Go back and look at episode 4.
Oh, there's going to be some dark stuff, right? Yeah, right. Well, we got. We got moving forward. We got Maul, potentially coming up. Obi-Wan's still kind of in the works. Rumors has it that Lucas is actually going to try to start being around a little bit more moving forward, but that is the rumors.
I think that Disney is so freaked out by people not liking their current take on Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, please fix it. We broke it. We're sorry.
So, but remember though, you'll remember this. You'll remember this. A lot of people remember this. Before Disney bought Lucasfilm, LucasArts, Star Wars. Let's just call it Star Wars.
Yeah.
A lot of people were very unhappy with the way George Lucas was handling the Star Wars genre.
I think George Lucas was unhappy with how.
And now that that's happened, and now that Disney has it, everyone's like, "Oh, George Lucas, this is yada yada." He's the master, and I call him the master.
I think that he is the idea guy, but I don't think that he should be in charge of
anything.
All of the stuff.
Like I would say anything, honestly.
Yeah.
I was a Lucas devotee. I really was. The very moment that I heard Disney bought it, I thought, well, that's it for Star Wars. That's going to be that was always the coolest thing in my life, and now it's not going to be the coolest thing. And nerd rage until I remembered how Episode 1, 2, and 3 play out.
Yeah.
They got a lot of hate in their day, and they're coming back around to being less hated. And I think that's because if you look at it from a perspective of George Lucas directing, which he doesn't do. He directed Episode 4, and from a lot of editing and a lot of outside sources, they made it into a film that could be palatable.
Yeah,
and obviously it changed the face of, so forth and so on.
5 and 6, he was way more hands off.
Yeah. Which were the better movies,
I mean, honestly, if you go back and watch Episode 3, it's really not all that bad. Like,
it's not.
Episode 2 is absolutely the worst of all of them. Everyone claims Jar Jar ruined the whole thing. No, 2 is the worst movie.
And see, with 2, you're right. 2 is it's for me, it's bad Star Wars, and it is a bad film.
Yeah.
I'm not a huge fan of Jar Jar either. For me, I try to distance myself from the implied lack of racial sensitivity.
Yeah.
Episode 1 is chock full of that with those and the Viceroy.
Oh, yeah. Oh.
With their accents. And it's like, where do these accents come from?
Oh, I know. Yeah.
Star Wars has, I say never. Like there were 20 films before 1, 2, 3 came out. But Star Wars has never been about the accents. You give them a different language. You can put whatever accent it was because it's a different language, and that represents a different ethnicity. But when you pick an accent that already exists,
and you throw it into,
and you hyper and you intensify characteristics that already exist in anyway.
Yeah.
The point is, again, a lack of racial sensitivity that just seems so blind.
Yeah.
Which Jar Jar just champions the whole time.
It would have been a perfect thing for him to like mix and match. Look at me. Subverting the
Nope. Real bad.
Wouldn't do that at all.
I still like Episode 1. I can watch the pod racing, and a lot of people don't like the pod racing. I love it for the sound design. I could listen to that scene all day. I love it.
I like Episode 1, and I didn't get it at the time at all. But now when you hear little Annie say the things that he says, now you're like, oh no, because he says, he looks at the stars and says something to the effect of, I want to go to all them places one day.
I want to see them all.
Yeah. And he does, but he does it via a dark helmet. The shadows that are cast on the wall. I didn't catch that. The Darth standing behind little Annie. I didn't catch that the first viewings. So there's so many things that George put in there. I think Dave Filoni sent out a tweet when they announced Captain Rex was actually the clone trooper that was with the Rebel Alliance.
Endor.
Yes.
Which they actually reference in Rebels. But
do they?
Right.
Oh, okay,
yes.
nice.
Yes.
Yeah. Like
so,
it ties everything together so beautifully.
What you just said, Dave Filoni sent out the tweet,
yeah.
and that his tweet was, you see it all goes together.
Yeah.
And so that, again, referencing what I said, that's why I think I should give 8 another chance. Like, did 9 really bring it in more than I think? Because 9, you talk about fan service. Some people don't like fan service. I'm a Star Wars fan. Give it all to me. You're not going to run me out of that theater by giving me too many Easter eggs.
Right.
You're going to make me sit and want to pick them all out.
Well, and I admit, when it comes to George Lucas, there was something that I didn't know until probably 3 or 4 weeks ago. okay, I knew about the whole oh goodness, Flash Gordon thing. You know, I knew about that years ago. But what I didn't know is that he had recently gotten in a wreck, and that is one of the things that changed his personality like forever. He got in a wreck right before struggling to get the rights to Flash Gordon because he wanted to make a big sci-fi movie, obviously. And from friends to family, they say his personality changed overnight after that wreck, and where he wanted to have control. And what the video essayist that I was watching theorizes is that that's kind of his whole theme of everything he wants to do. He wants to have complete control over it, not necessarily out of being some sort of overfiend, but because of how that changed his personality overnight.
Yeah.
Wow.
I swear I'm getting to a point. The point is, when he has control over small things, like in episode 4, there's a lot of interviews from Hamill and from almost called him Han, Harrison Ford and Carrie Fisher, where they talk about how he was not a director, he was not a day-to-day director. He was busy on set making miniatures. He was busy on set getting the camera angles right for all of the space stuff and all the battle stuff. But he doesn't direct people. Even Hayden Christensen said, he would just tell us to go.
No,
he wouldn't tell us what he wanted. He would just say go, and he could see on the page, and you could see it.
Who was the voice of Darth Maul?
Serafinowicz.
Peter
Serafinowicz.
Serafinowicz has the best interview, like, or you know, he says, so George, what's my motivation for this guy? Like, you know, tell me some of his backstory. George leans in. He's a really bad guy. He's pretty villainous. That was it. That's all the.
Did you hear about them snubbing him for the episode 1 premiere?
What? No.
Peter Serafinowicz. I mean, the voice of Darth Maul for for that film. Obviously, only got what was this, the 6 lines, the 7 lines?
Yeah.
They went through this whole big deal trying to audition to get the right person, and they found him, and he was still a fairly respected name in the UK as far as acting is concerned.
Yeah.
And they didn't invite him to the red carpet premiere in New York. Like, just didn't invite him.
Yeah.
I mean, whoops. Neither New York nor the LA that Mines Chinese Theater, like a whole bunch of premieres, they just didn't invite him and wouldn't pay to fly him out. Oh man, it's
I'm just shocked that like they haven't used him in anything. So,
right.
Like, I mean,
there's a reason. I'm sure there's got to be a reason.
Yeah.
He's probably said something about.
It could be. It could be. He could have said something negative that were like, okay, well, end of that. So that's
Called him a bunch of a-holes.
Maybe
he could be a raging drunk. We don't know.
There's
I'm
no
not saying
telling.
he is. I don't know.
Yeah, there's no telling, but it's
social media will tell us.
It's funny the way that sort of thing folds out. But
what you said about Flash Gordon, one of the biggest gripes of Ep.9 is Palpatine. Why is Palpatine there? He's cloned, yada, yada, yada. Well, you got to think the way George Lucas did things, basing so much off of Flash Gordon, growing up with that kind of stuff. Was it the 7 Deadly Samurai? Help me out with the...
you're talking about the
Seven Samurai?
The Seven Samurai, as well as Hidden Fortress.
Yes.
The director. Oh my goodness. The most famous Japanese director like of all time. Kurosawa. Oh, yes.
So,
Hidden Fortress was the inspiration for the Death Star. Seven Samurai was the inspiration for, every spaghetti western you've ever seen.
Well, think about what the
Yojimbo, but George Lucas took a lot of that. But yeah.
Right. On Flash Gordon and Ep.9, with Palpatine being there, why is he there? Well, I'm not saying Lucas, this was his input, but in Flash Gordon, which was one of the main bases for Star Wars, Ming never dies.
Yeah.
Palpatine's kind of... People are upset about Palpatine. A lot of people are upset about Palpatine showing back up. Well, you know what? Guess what? He might come back again.
Well, I think that it was a missed opportunity. Have Snoke just be another clone of Snoke and have that.
The trilogy should have a beginning, middle, and it needs to be concise.
The problem with bringing Palpatine back is it negates Vader's sacrifice entirely.
I think Vader's sacrifice. He was at the right place at the right time, where he needed to be.
And look at every part of Star Wars. You know, with redemption comes loss is a constant theme throughout the series.
Absolutely.
So without that,
Absolutely.
it's the okay. So what did we actually do here? You know, who lost what, who gained what, and to what end?
Okay, so without Darth Vader making that sacrifice without Darth Vader, quote unquote, bringing balance to the Force, and that is the general. It is still conceived that was the time it happened.
Yeah,
not this
because
time, but
that's Vader bringing himself up and Luke taking himself down.
Just within the mythos and the lore, without him doing what he did at that time, it might take away from the sacrifice he made, but it still did bring balance to the Force by him doing what he did.
Well, I would say that it almost does.
Well, because if he didn't, he would still be either the new emperor and Luke would be his apprentice, or it'd be the emperor and Darth, or the emperor and Luke underneath him. The Sith would still, the dark side would still be in control. So I don't like it.
Well,
I don't
but
like
as Yoda says, there is another.
There's another.
Yeah, absolutely.
So.
I think
What, a baby Yoda?
I think that the it's one of those things. You're exactly right about not being able to do both things, and I think that's what they kind of did with 9, in making the choice to. Sorry, let me back up. Palpatine being there, I have no issue with.
I have no issue with it.
I have a lot of issues with the technical execution of it. His makeup looked. Well, we've done better makeup, Buck. We have done better makeup.
The reason is, as he's gotten older, they use less makeup on the man.
Well, I get that. All the things they were afraid to CGI.
Interesting.
I would have just. Those big wrinkles that they showed in such great detail in 2 and 3, or at the end of 3, it wasn't appealing, but it was great because it was like, I know what that's going to look like in 20 years. It's going to look just like it did in episode 4, 5, and 6, and it feels. I mean, it's not the best beat.
It feels like it backtracked.
Yeah, and all of a sudden he doesn't. He's just barely wrinkly. He's just an old man.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, it could have. So that's where the having both comes in. He's either a clone because Emperor did clones, and that's the whole thing. Like that was a big deal in the EU before it was ever stricken, and it was supposed to be harkening back to the Clone Wars. Well, you've already botched the Clone Wars. The Clone Wars were supposed to be the Empire cloning just soldiers by the millions and billions, and not learning the lesson that you couldn't grow a healthy one in less than a year, and they would just disintegrate. They would just disintegrate while walking into battle, and the Empire didn't care. They would just keep cloning people, and it was a horrible thing. But you've changed that into the Kaminoans doing their cloning highly successfully in batches of hundreds of thousands.
So just one guy.
So now there's not a lesson to learn about cloning. So cloning's perfected, but now you have it's weird to do both.
And
it's weird to have taken what was there, turned it on its head, and then try to take what was already there and try to use it not being turned on its head, and it's
so the cloning. The Doctor of Chapter 1 is wearing a Kamino cloning facility on his armband, is what's been pointed out. So I do think they're going to try to figure out some of the issues that they've created with the cloning process via the Mandalorian and via this Baby Yoda. That's definitely going to go somewhere.
Oh, I
think they can bring some of that in, but I totally agree. I didn't like the cloning in the comics. Dark Empire. But it was
old Dark Horse.
Again,
absolutely. Yeah.
When you're 42 years old and you had 3 episodes until 1999, I'll take any.
5.
Right.
I will take.
Man.
We had.
2 Ewoks.
I got Dark Empire. I've got all the Tales of the Jedi. I've got a long box and a half of Star Wars comics that are all now Legends, all EU. And you know what? I had a problem with it then. I got a problem with it now, but I think a lot of times we forget, and we forget the dark ages for us of when we had no Star Wars, that we didn't have to go buy a novel. And I like the novels. I love the novels.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But people forget, like we talked canon. If I remember right, there were 5 levels of canon leading up to before Disney bought it. You had George canon, George approved canon by other authors, George's ideas, ones he never signed off on, and at the very bottom you had glorified fan fiction that was published, and then you had fan fiction.
Yep.
At least we don't have that problem anymore, and we are getting some movies.
I'll throw on my hipster scarf and be there with you. I remember when Star Wars wasn't that cool.
Yeah.
That there
was like the deserts of Tatooine.
Yes. It was
I'm
quite,
sorry,
quite
Star
barren.
Wars nerds, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I remember when it was almost a closet thing to be that into Star Wars. Not unlike to be a huge, comic book nerd. I
don't know any of those.
It's
nerds.
There truly was a time when Star Wars wasn't in the main frame of media, obviously those times have passed, and maybe that's a good thing. But I remember that, and I think that's another reason now we're coming back to psychology, and I apologize. I think that's another reason why there are a lot of people who have emotional issues with 7, 8, 9 or whatever, even Mandalorian, if you will, because it was all so well established and laid out, and then a huge section of your life's studies. That's embarrassing, but true.
Yeah.
Imagine how much stuff we would know about if Star Wars wasn't in the way.
It was just puffed into the wind. It was just absolutely destroyed.
I think there are so many subjects I would be like in the top 5% of the world knowing about. Star Wars wouldn't have sucked so many hours of referencing and cross-referencing. We did the same thing. So.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. But I think that's why people feel more invested than they probably should. I'm one of them. Yeah. I'm definitely one of them. I do. When we saw Chewbacca. Okay, actually, I think Chewbacca got done wrong. Using bad grammar there on purpose.
Yep.
In 2 films. And I apologize for bringing up Solo, but the moment they said, throw him in there with the beast, I was like, no, do not make this Chewbacca's origin. Do not make this Chewbacca's origin. And then hear the noise, and I was like, welp, we're doing this now. Oh, wow, that's just horrible. I can't wait to figure out how they're going to shoehorn their friendship in under 60 seconds.
Yeah.
And, that's what happened. And of course, when we thought he had been killed in Episode 9, it felt cheap. It felt okay. For me. I like a lot of what J.J. Abrams does, but his version of, I don't know if you've ever heard his theory on the mystery box.
Yes.
That's how he writes everything he does. He includes a mystery box, and he makes this example of a box of magic tricks that before you open it, it's so much more worth anything because you never know what's inside.
Right.
But what's inside is just plastic crap. It's nothing. And that's everything that he's ever made or written. Lost is obviously that way, where there's mystery for the sake of mystery. And once you uncover it...
That's where they wrote themselves into a box and could not.
And you find that, oh my gosh, all the mystery was just for the sake of mystery. There's no explanation. Right. There's no good thing. There's no core of this. And so, again, I don't want to insult someone who's made so many good movies and done so well in that arena. But sometimes, like it was, again, that mystery of Chewbacca being killed, I was like, I couldn't be sad because I was like, this is J.J. Abrams. This is a mystery box. I can't even care. I don't even want to know what happened to that ship. And then, 30 seconds later, we find out he didn't die.
I didn't believe it. I was like, and honestly, I said, in my mind, they don't got the guts to do it.
Yeah, and it washed over me.
Whatever child was sitting next to me during that viewing, I was like, he's still alive.
Yeah, I took it as they really are
totally
cleaning house in this.
Right?
But
wonder what that actor did. Peter Bay's not like, oh my goodness, we're looking for another 7'6" actor.
All right, guys. Well, I think that we've solved all the world's problems that we could solve today. I thought, we'll struggle to get through a little bit of Star Wars. Holy crap, we need to have more of these Star Wars podcasts.
I will talk the wars anytime.
Yeah, I talk Godzilla with George and Eric all the time. So yeah, you all be my Star Wars crew. I will definitely have a follow up one of these whenever I get back with from Disney with all the Galaxy's Edge and all that.
Have you got the app for the Star Wars app?
Oh, we've got the app.
Okay.
We've got the everything. The wife is on top of.
I'm sure. Yes, of course.
Yeah. Yeah, thank God for her. Yeah. All right, everyone. Thank you all for listening. Hopefully it's been entertaining. If not, let us know. You can email Jarrod at... No.
Directly.
Now, resubscribe, tell your friends, and be safe, have fun, don't die. We'll see y'all next time.